Welcome back to Limitless Talks with your girl, Sierra Rainge. This is where bold conversations live, real stories, raw lessons, and strategic truths from the voices shaping culture, creating impact, and elevating without apology. Limitless Talks explores strategy, identity, resilience, and the philosophy behind success. It uncovers what it really takes to navigate pressure, leadership, and authenticity in real time, not just the highlight reel. Today's conversation sits at the powerful intersection, the intersection of faith and mental wellness. Our guest, Marilyn Shaw, is a therapist, best-selling author, national mental health educator, and the founder of Faitherapy, a movement dedicated to bridging the gap between faith, mental wellness, especially for high performers, leaders, and women seeking a deeper integration of spirit, purpose, and emotional health. Faitherapy exists to eliminate stigma, offer a safe space, and help leaders blend the vision of spiritual faith with practical, evidence-based tools for mental health and resilience. Marilyn, welcome to Limitless Talks.
Thank you for having me, Sierra.
I'm so excited
Me
to see
too.
it.
Yes.
You look good, girl.
Girl, you too. Come through gloves.
You see, I was so inspired by Kim Kardashian on that show, All Is Fair.
Yeah.
I was so inspired, so I had to get me a pair.
You got to put them on, honey. They look good on you, child. I like it.
How are you? How have you been?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling really good. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be here in this incubator of Limitless Talks and helping others just realize their full potential, especially when it comes to faith and mental wellness. So I'm excited.
Well, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So tell me, what started or what was the inspiration behind Faitherapy?
You know, Faitherapy started from my own personal journey. You know, before I even became a therapist, I spent a decade standing behind the chair as a hairstylist. And hearing the stories of so many other women, I was in the thick of hustle culture. So that's where millennials were like moving and shaking and doing all the things, blazing a trail. But it became a recipe for disaster for me. I actually had a mental breakdown. And now mental health is commonly talked about. It's, you know, at the dinner table, but then it wasn't talked about. You know, church became therapy, especially for minority cultures. So for me, you know, I looked at my faith as my refuge, but I knew after my breakdown, I needed more help. I really didn't know where to go. And once I started going to therapy, and it was with a believer who helped me to really understand just how delicate and amazing our mind and bodies are truly made by God, it helped me to realize that this is where I'm supposed to be. So once I started telling my story, doing the book with your amazing company publishing deal, becoming a best-selling author, so many women started knocking on my door saying, hey, I had a mental breakdown, but the thing for them, they never got help. So that was my call. I answered it. And here I am now as a therapist at the intersection, helping other women who were in the same place that I was in once before.
Girl, I got chills.
Wow.
I love how you talked about faith in the church being a refuge.
Yes.
But we still need that evidence-based medicine.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit more about your breakdown because you work with leaders and high achievers. So a lot of times high achievers are high functioning.
Yes.
So we don't always recognize when we're depressed or when we're burnt out because we're so used to moving. What are some of those indicators that it's a time, a cause to pause and reflect to prevent burnout or breakdown? And what are some signs that you might just be headed towards a breakdown?
Yeah, you know, it's hard for high achievers to stop because oftentimes they're celebrated for their success and they don't even realize that they need to slow down. They look at it as a risk that there's a deficit that's going to happen. Their brand's going to be tarnished. They're going to be looked at as unstable, like they're not efficient in all the areas that they're called to. But some of the signs that they recognize is lack of clarity. Their thoughts are constantly racing. You hear people say, I get my best thoughts when I'm going to sleep. I got to keep my notepad next to my bed.
That's me,
you know.
girl. We're not supposed to do that? Wait a minute.
Because the thing is, when oftentimes it's so commonly celebrated, right? Go, grind, and get, right? However, when you recognize that when your success is now holding you hostage, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Come on. We gotta peel that back a little
Yes.
bit. When success holds you hostage, right? Because true success should create space for rest.
Yes.
And rest is a part of productivity. So there comes a time, and I know for me this was a very pivotal moment in my career, when I learned to abandon the hustle in order to adopt the flow, right?
Yes.
And that requires us to really have what I like to call a sweet surrender.
Yeah.
'Cause if we are truly trusting God with our dreams, with our visions, with our careers, there's a level of trusting that this does not have to be done in my own strength.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
But when you're so strong and you're so independent and you are a leader, sometimes we have this idea that it's all on us. And I think that's just too much of a weight to carry.
It is. It is too much of a weight, because you talked about it, Sierra. That's where faith is so important, because faith gives you the ability to rest in confidence, knowing that it's not in your own strength, that God has given you the ability to do the things that you have, but also He gives you the ability to rest. So when you begin to really embrace that, surrender to that strategy, it's a life changer. You're not moved by people. You're not comparing yourself to other people. You're not driven by hustle culture. You're not driven by achievement fatigue. You're in a place where you are in your flow. And therapy becomes the opportunity for people to rediscover, what is their flow? My flow may look different from yours and the next person, but until you learn to adopt the strategy of slowing down and being anchored in your faith, being anchored in who God says you to be, instead of being anchored in your success, that's when things can really shift for people.
Yeah, that's so good. So you're anchored in faith.
Yes.
How do we integrate evidence-based practices in our faith? Because we know how to go to church.
Yes.
And we know how to pray.
Yes.
And we know how to call on God. But what happens when you pray and you're still depressed? When
Yes.
you pray and you're still grieving? When you pray and your heart is still broken? When you pray and the dream is still delayed?
Yes. That's where therapy becomes a powerful strategy, because you now have a safe place where your brokenness, your pain can come in the same room as where you're going to next. Everybody needs that incubator. Everybody needs that womb. Everybody needs that moment of reflection. And sometimes when you are a leader, it's hard for you to see yourself.
Girl.
It's hard. And sometimes, say for example, you're going through grief, you're navigating grief. Most often people are told to just keep going.
Yeah.
Continue to be strong. That's a measure of success navigating grief. However, when you integrate clinical acts of going to therapy, that gives you a chance to where you can be vulnerable to process your grief. Then when you're finished with that moment, right, you can now have the freedom to go and be who you're called to be outside of that space. But what happens is when you don't have that space, grief shows up unexpectedly. It may show up in your attitude. It might show up in when you're trying to close the deal. It might show up in all these other places. That's why therapy is so important. For me, I'm a trauma-informed therapist. So I work with a lot of high-functioning leaders who sometimes they're good at hiding their stuff.
Yeah.
They're very good at hiding.
Yeah.
But once we start working through a lot of talk therapy, we quickly move into what's known as EMDR.
Let's talk about
Let's
talk about
that. Yeah.
Because I really, really wanted our audience to learn more about the evidence-based practices that help us to navigate. And you and I, we've talked a lot about the duality of grace and grief.
Yes.
And learning that they can both coexist at the same
They
time.
can.
Because as a high achiever and a high functioning person, we know what success feels like, but this grief thing, like, what do I do with this?
Yes.
So a part of, and I think I'm hearing you correctly, a part of that is learning to compartmentalize by creating space for your grief, to feel your feelings, to come undone, all 5 stages.
Absolutely.
But then be able to close that box and then show up as the leader, as the mom, as the wife, as the CEO.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And it's a muscle. Just like any other part of our body that we have to work, going to therapy is a muscle. So if you're not used to exercising in that space, it may feel like grief it's interrupting. It's dysfunctional, right?
It feels like an interruption. I'm not
Absolutely.
going to hold you. It feels like an interruption.
It does.
I was having a conversation with my dad earlier about just processing divorce.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm so frustrated because this grief is still here.
Yeah.
now I'm angry because I have willpower. I have resilience, but no matter how much I push through, there's still a layer of grief there. And it's grief of the future that I had in mind.
Yes.
It's grief of the identity, who I thought I was as a wife, that's no longer the case.
Yes.
It's even the grief of now having to navigate my life now as a single mother. And it's not that I can't push past pain. We've done that plenty of times over. But grief is like this giant that you must break down like one jab at a time.
Absolutely.
So just learning, how do I hold space for my very big feelings without allowing them to overcome me, so much so that all I have is my grief. You know, because I want to create room for my goals. And so the duality of grace and grief allows us to show up and shine, but then I take time for my big feelings.
Grief changes you.
Girl.
And that's the hard part to come to realize. Grief changes you.
But how do you keep it from, because pain changes us, right? I think that pain warps our perception, and that's why I'm a big fan of like hush until you heal. You know, take some time to pause and reflect. So we know that grief changes us. It has the capacity to change us. But how do we keep it from changing us for the worse?
It can change you for the better if you allow it. What happens is sometimes we become impatient with our grief process. We just want to be able to move on to the next chapter. But it's important when you go to therapy, it gives you a chance to really, piece by piece, emotion by emotion, process what you've gone through. And not just what you've gone through in that moment, but how has your circle changed?
In your life?
Absolutely.
And your habits? And even your perception of success?
Absolutely.
Like that's the one thing we don't know about grief. We don't properly respect about grief. It changes everything. It changes everything. And you're forced to recalibrate. And to create, I don't even want to say a new normal, because nothing is ever the same. But I like that you said you can get better, because it does make you better.
Absolutely. You do get better. You learn a different side of yourself. And the thing about it, we're not a robot. In the world of digital technology and AI, it's like you put in and you get out quickly. That's not how it works on this side. God made us different.
Oh, yes,
He causes us to be changed and transformed by things that we've gone through, right? So when you think about processing grief, it's really about having patience, giving yourself grace to understand, who am I now? You know, my grief grace journey really started when my mom passed away. I was at the intersection of switching careers, going to become a therapist. Mind you, she was the one who said, I want you to do this. I see what's ahead for you, but yet also navigating the process of seeing her change. I'm becoming this newfound woman, but also watching my mom's motherhood, right? All of that bubbling in together, right? But during that moment, I was in therapy. I had a safe place to be unhinged, a safe place for me to really process all the ebbs and flows, the dreams, meaning when I'm trying to sleep, where I can't sleep, where reoccurring things are happening. Once I got through the process of going through cognitive behavior therapy, meaning traditional talk therapy, we went through EMDR.
So let's talk about EMDR. Talk to the people, because you are an EMDR psychotherapist. So let's talk about your work.
So with EMDR, it's really about processing the unconscious thoughts.
So that's where the ruminating and the limerence comes from.
Absolutely. Yes. When you're a high functioning person, most of the time you're taught to push through. You've built that muscle to push through. Where EMDR allows you to silence your mouth, meaning you can't persuade yourself around what's going on. And you're only given short snippets to say certain things. And when you're in the process of EMDR, your mind is put at a pre-REM state of sleep. Meaning you're not totally out. You're conscious.
It's like a little bit of hypno?
Not hypnos. Not that exactly. But think of it like, have you ever been in a room with somebody and they kind of sway a little bit? Like they self-soothe? Yes.
I do that.
Okay. It's a way where you're able to self-soothe just a little bit, right? It's almost like you're taking a person off guard, but it allows the subconscious thoughts to come to the surface, but you're in community with your therapist. So they're helping you to not push past, but process through those thoughts that come up. And think of it like you're on a train and you're going through the tunnel, meaning the dark process. You want to close your eyes and just want to stop at that moment. No, the therapist is going to help you guide through that moment. The train may slow down just a little bit in order for you to get through some of those big emotions that we suppress. But at the end of the tunnel, that light at the end of the tunnel is where you will be. What happens after going through EMDR, you're not triggered. What happens with grief, what happens with trauma, most of the time people, they are walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
They've learned how to normalize dysfunction. Whereas with EMDR, you're truly, truly not triggered. Yeah. Meaning I can talk about my mom without crying. I can talk about things that I went through without allowing it to overcome with the emotions. I can talk about it in a way, even as a therapist, sitting across from another client that's gone through grief that sounds similar to me, and I'm able to feel what they're going through, but it's not overtaking me.
Because you've programmed and trained your brain, right?
Yes.
And I think that's why what you do is so important when you talk about the intersection of faith and therapy. Because I'm a PK. My father is a pastor. And so what we do in our Christian practices, sometimes it can be really unhealthy because we will have a spiritual bypass.
Yes.
It's like the Lord gonna heal me.
Yes.
The Lord gonna make a way.
Yes.
You know, it's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
And it will be all right, but it doesn't negate the work.
Yes.
So I love that the EDMR, it's training the brain to find harmony with
Absolutely.
the pain, right? Absolutely. Because I think that's the only way that we're no longer triggered is when that we're no longer afraid of that
It's
pain.
a renewed mind.
It's another intersection of faith and therapy.
It's a renewed mind.
I love it.
It's where we see in scripture comes to life. And we talk about, God being a healer. Healing may happen in therapy. Yeah. Healing may not happen at the altar. For some people it does, but for some people it might come through medication. It might come through talk therapy. It might come through EMDR. It may look different. God is not limited. Yeah. Right?
So when you talk about medication, I think that's a really, really important place to pause for my Black, brown sisters and brothers.
Yes.
The stigma of medication.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that because I know you touch on that a lot in your work.
Yes.
And I want to talk about the stigmas because my Caucasian and other counterparts, they don't have the same resistance to treatment in our communities. Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit.
A lot of it's historical based. For a lot of us who are built in minority communities, we were guinea pigs, so to speak. Yeah. So for some of them, they feel like I just don't even know, like it feels unsafe, right? But thankfully, now that mental health is talked about a lot more, there are psychiatrists and psychologists that look like you and I who are knowledgeable and can really help people take the medication like they need to help them to reduce symptoms or eliminate them. But here's the thing with medication. It's not just taking the pill, it's the pill and therapy.
Come on.
It's the whole process together.
The whole armor.
Absolutely. It's all of it together. Like if you're on high blood pressure medication, you're not going to just take it and never go back to your doctor. No, you're going to come back for your 3 months, 6 months, 1 year to see how you're progressing. It's the same thing when you're on psychiatric medication. You need a team of support around you to be able to navigate and to really understand. You may need to taper it down or tape it up. You never know what you might need, but it's important to recognize and not to be feeling ashamed. If you need medication, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And when you think about from a biblical perspective, we live in a fallen world, meaning all things are not going to work perfectly. Therefore, God has allowed us to have access to resources to help us to live a life of wholeness. We just have to let pride go.
We got to let pride go.
Yes.
And shame.
Yes.
And guilt.
Yes.
And the fear of being broken.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So with high achievers and leaders, because I know that this is the core of the women that you work with. So my question to you is, what advice would you share with leaders who perform well externally, but feel like they're failing and falling apart internally?
Yeah, if you have that level of awareness about yourself, that something is off. I'm celebrated outside, but on the inside, I'm just not fully there. If you were talking to a team member, there would be no question about you helping them to find the help that they need. Why aren't you looking at yourself with the same level of value? Why are you diminishing?
It's a value thing.
It is. It's a value system. And some leaders, they outsource their value to their work or success. But when they recognize that something is disjointed, that there is this internal dialogue that's causing them to look at themselves as if they're broken, it's time for you to get help. There's no way to sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
Like I could put it in, flowery words and give them all the scriptures and all. That's not important.
Yeah.
What is important for them to realize, it's a value system issue. There's a level of deficiency that they have with internally about who they say that they are in order for them to move forward. They're motivated externally. They're motivated by success. They're motivated by the applause. They're motivated by money. However, if they're broken on the inside, that is going to come out.
And that is why we need you.
Yes.
So that we can get the help.
Yes,
Leaders
ma'am.
can get the help.
Come get the help.
So tell us, how do you help leaders? And then where can our audience find you and connect to get some of that help, girl?
Yes, I'm the founder of Faitherapy, which is a private practice for women leaders to come and get the help that they need. We focus at the intersection of faith and mental wellness. And with our practice, women are able to be in community with other women. Like, we're set up different. We're not your typical private practice where you come in, you see the doctor, you leave. No, when you're in community, we're in community with you. We're doing life with you. So whether it's in one-on-one sessions or with our Wise Counsel group or even at our events, it's really about uplifting women and meeting them where they are. So that's what we're all about.
Marilyn, thank you so much for sharing with such honesty and profound insight, and for also creating space for leaders to lead with both faith and emotional truth. The work you're doing reminds us that resilience isn't spiritual if it surpasses the human experience. It's spiritual when it embraces the whole person. Thank you for being a part of Limitless Talks. I so appreciate you and your brilliance.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Till next time. They see your strength, your leadership, and your success. But what they don't see is the weight you carry. At Faitherapy, we bridge the gap between faith and mental wellness, helping women leaders renew, restore, and redefine their lives. Through therapy, community, and support, you don't have to carry it alone. Become a Be Well member today. Visit www.myfaiththerapy.com/member. Faith Therapy, where faith is also your mental wellness.